Next up, we got Josh Duro from Alabama. He said, "Hey guys, love your show. I found y'all after listening to another podcast from the Midwest, but wanting something that was applicable for Southern hunting." Man, we're throwing some heat at the Midwesterners today. Let's go. Quick search of Southern hunting led me to y'all. I think you guys had just started. Thanks for what y'all do, Andrew and Jacob. Awesome show, great content. So my question is, have you guys heard of a quote-unquote split rut? I'm seeing a lot of folks talking about this specific to this year on a 19-year cycle correlating with the moon, which I read an article which suggested that this year in the Midwest, the mid-October peak breeding and then around Thanksgiving for peak breeding sounds like a more widespread first and second rut, but wanted to get your guys' take on it and know if there's any research backing this theory up. Thought it was interesting. Thanks. Have a blessed day. So what he's saying is, and I've seen this too online, there's people putting articles out and there's people talking on social media that the rut is going to be split in half this year. And the first half of it's going to be in October and the second half, like mid to late October, second half is going to be around Thanksgiving. I doubt it.
You've seen stuff on this? I've never even heard.
Really?
Yeah.
You haven't seen it? Really? People have been sharing it in all the groups.
No, I have not seen it.
Yeah, you don't get on those groups anymore, do you?
I do, but the thing is like, I want to know where the data, he's saying it's a 19-year cycle. I'd love to know, is that from observations of hunters or is that like some science?
I think it's, I wish I knew who like first put this out, but to me, without knowing who actually put it out, to me, it sounds like, just being honest here, someone who sells a moon calendar and like, I'm not saying that they're like misleading people or anything like that. I'm just saying that they've probably got some formula that they think that this is what's going to happen, and so they're kind of pushing that.
Okay,
that's what I think it probably is. I've never seen anything that suggests that the rut moves that much. Pretty much all the research that I've seen, and then also asking people like Bronson Strickland directly, other deer biologists that I know, asking them directly, the rut has to do with photoperiod. So it has to do with the amount of sunlight during each day. So as the days get shorter, that's what triggers the biological mechanism in a deer's head that causes the testosterone to rise in the bucks and does to come into their estrus cycle. So the moon doesn't really affect that. And there's two sides to this coin, because a lot of people think that the rut has to do with the moon and like the first full moon and whatever like triggers the rut. I don't really believe that. I know a lot of people who do. I mean, people have different opinions on it. I think what's more likely is the breeding dates happen at the same time every single year. Like the does are getting bred the same times every year, and people can go and actually prove that. You can go shoot does in the late season, go cut out the fetus and measure it and get a very, very accurate reading of when that fawn was conceived. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, it's been tested for, like I said, I've just seen a lot of research that says it happens at the same time every year. When it comes to the moon, I think what might be happening is if there is something to the moon cycle, it's probably just dictating whether or not you're seeing the deer doing the rutting. So, it's like they're always rutting like on November 8th every year in the Midwest. Like that's during the rut, they're doing their thing. But some years the moon falls where, they're more daylight active. Some years the moon falls and they're just more nighttime active. So it gives you the perception that the rut has moved when they're still doing it. They're just doing it at night. I don't really believe that. I don't really think that the moon affects that. I think a lot of other things affect it. I think if the moon has an effect, it's a very small secondary effect that's hard to measure. So I might probably get some hate for that. But what's your opinion on this whole thing? Get the spotlight off me for a second.
I've got something. I don't
say it.
No, it's something to do with Michael Pike and his thoughts on dating.
Oh no!
Has to go around the moon.
Oh gosh!
Yeah, interesting conversation. That was like a year. Or 2
Michael's
years ago.
planning out what days he's going to the woods and what days he's going to the club.
And not the hunting club.
Not the hunting club. You're going downtown to Nana Funk's.
Yeah. To me, that would be so wild if there's a cycle like this where a doe, if she was traditionally coming, again, talking like more traditional November, right? Down in the South, guys, we all know that, especially, Georgia's crazy with their rut. South Carolina's pretty wild. Alabama, Florida, Mississippi, Louisiana, all of them have certain regions of the state that will rut at different times. Mm-hmm. Like Georgia's got like Southeast Georgia, second week of October, they're rutting. and you go all the way up to like certain parts that's, late December, okay, and everything in between. So I don't know how that could actually work. I would love to know specifically more data points, if anything's ever been studied on that outside of observations. And maybe someone has looked at this specifically with like backdating fawns.
Yeah.
Okay. But the thing is, there's always going to be does coming to heat a little bit earlier, a little bit later than the whole pool of does. Like we found areas that we're hunting. There are does in there that are coming into heat probably 2 to 3 weeks earlier than
most of the other does in the area.
Majority of the other does, okay? And it's like you could find that probably in a lot of places. Like we had listeners, like after that second part 2 episode with Shane Parker and Michael Pike that came out maybe a little less than a month ago roughly. Shane was talking about, again, the whole thing about backdating does, backdating fawns.
Yeah.
And we had listeners write in like, dude, like one of the guys was like, man, I backdated a fawn, got photos of it very soon after it dropped, probably within a few days. And it was saying that fawn was conceived, it was like mid-October in a place that ruts that second week of November, typically.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, I know where I'm going to be, but it's kind of wild. You see that, like, again, random, just one doe came into heat way early and, buck bredder and the whole 9 yards. So that's something to kind of think about. It's like, I think there's always variability and it's based off the individual does. Like, yeah, they're the masses of those does in a certain area. They're going to be bred. The peak breeding is going to be a certain date range, okay?
Yep.
But there's going to be does on the front half of that bell curve, week 2 weeks out, before that peak, that's going to be being bred, and the same thing on the back end of it. And I think that's something that people need to realize is like peak breeding is when majority of your deer are coming into heat and when the majority of them are going to be bred, your does. But again, there's other ones coming to heat before and after that. So that's why we've talked about in some areas that we've hunted specifically that, we've had good success on the front half of that peak bell curve and on the back half as well.
Yeah.
And it's just something to think about. So, y'all let us know if you're hunting somewhere, especially in the Midwest or a place that has like this November rut, see if you see any kind of rutting activity mid-October.
But do you buy it like that the ruts can be split in half this year? Like do you think that's going to happen, or do you think that's possible? I guess is what I'm asking.
I don't think it's necessarily possible. Like the peak breeding date, like half those does are being split now. I just think you're going to always have some does that are coming to heat way earlier and some way later than the others. So I'd be more interested specifically figuring out the data of why people are saying that. Like again, like what does if they're saying the whole moon is a factor for does to be bred or does to come into estrus, what's happening different this year than the last 18 years?
All right. This is from the Evening Tribune.
Oh, you found it?
I think so.
Is that a credible source?
The Evening Tribune, whitetail rut prediction for 2024, what to expect while deer hunting this fall. Drawing on 50 years of data, columnist Oak Duke observes the time when bucks are most active by chasing doe and how it correlates precisely with cyclic moon phases. Here's how 2024 looks. The dude's name is Oak Duke. That's a pretty legit name, I'm not going to lie.
Sounds like a pen name to me.
Yeah, right.
I don't
know. Let's see. I'm just kind of skimming through this. Using the rut phases to predict the rut. Moon phases. The moon repeats itself, unfolding its phases exactly the same every 19 years. It's called the Metonic cycle. And on those years, the whitetail rut rolls out in a similar way as 19 years prior and not like the previous year. The rut. Killed my... So... Yeah, he's making the case that because the moon phase is on like a 19-year cycle that it's entirely the moon phase affecting it. Yeah, I don't buy that. I don't discount. So okay, scratch what I said earlier about a guy trying to sell a moon calendar. It seems like this is just a columnist, and this is like his opinion on his personal data. I can respect that. Yeah. Like if he's figured out some pattern in his area, cool. I don't think that's going to be widespread. I think that if you're, hunting your normal place this year, I don't think that you should like I'm not going to Kansas in mid-October now because of that article. Like we're still going later November, like trying to catch the back end of the rut. Mm-hmm. So anyways, I'll ask a biologist about that because we're going to have some biologists here in the very near future on the podcast. So I'm just going to ask them, get their opinion.